What's up, everyone? Green Eye Trombonist here, and I was tagged in something. Trainer Jody recently did a video called the DnD Tag. He was tagged by Ginny D, who created this, and he tagged me. So now we're going to get into about 15 questions all about me and D&D. So let's just dive in. What was your first D&D character? Okay, so I have wanted to play D&D pretty much my entire life. I have distinct memories about knowing what it was at like age of 7/before. And I remember in high school wanting to play, but friends were like, that's not cool, it's nerdy, it's the thing to do in like basements. So I didn't really bring it up. Fun fact, the friends who said those things play tabletop role-playing games now. So I didn't get a chance to play D&D until I was, I think, 22. And that was a second edition game. I didn't have any of the books, any dice, nothing. But I was playing with a group and the DM said, tell me what you want your character to be. I'll make the character sheet. So I asked for an intersex elf with a longbow and a pet ferret that was black but named Snow. That's all I wanted, right? And so that was my first D&D character. I don't remember the elf's name at all. I tried to do true neutral for anyone who knows me. I'm just not a true neutral person, so it's a little hard, and depending on how you consider true neutral, they can actually be kind of not fun to play. But I do remember in the first game when we got surrounded by several wolves, that I was able to let my ferret use burning hands, which I then called burning paws, and have it just run up and down the back of one of the wolves. And it managed to kill that wolf all on its own. I was so proud. I miss my little imaginary ferret friend. But yeah, that was my first D&D character. Next question. Which D&D class is your least favorite to play, or do you not want to play? This is actually going to be a repeat of Jody's answer, though for different reasons. I don't want to play clerics. I don't gravitate towards them. I personally don't really understand them. And I think some of that is because I have not had religion in my life, really. One parent atheist, one agnostic. I am very much not a religious person. So when I look at the cleric, part of me recoils. And it does have to do with some of the more religious people who have been in my life. As I haven't had religion, I have had religious family members who attended churches who preach things like should stay with like, which metaphor for not marrying outside your race. Family members who bought my sister and I Bibles when we went to visit them over the summer, had them inscribed with our names, and then told them we needed to read them every single day without bothering to ask our parents if that would be okay. So I've just had some really negative interactions with like the super religious. And as a result of that, cleric is very far away from anything I want to play. Kind of also part of the reason paladin is next there, though that also has to do with not really liking too much melee. All right, next question. That one kind of deep. What D&D spell would you most want to have in real life? Oh God. So I have a thing in D&D where every character I've played has managed to have some kind of fire spell. Love all fire spells in the game. cantrip, firebolt, give me some fireball, like wall of fire, love that one. I would never trust myself to have those in real life. I once accidentally set a plastic trash can on fire, like ended up setting a slight bonfire in my room when I was little. I would not trust myself with those spells. So as much as I love them in the game, I would not use them in real life whatsoever. I think since we have texting, I don't think message would actually be that useful, but I think something like prestidigitation would actually be really fun. It's not harmful, but coming from like a theater background and looking at performance and thinking about performance on a day-to-day basis, having something like prestidigitation would be really fun just to add those like emphases, right? Like I could say something ominous and have like the sound of thunder. That would be awesome. So to cap up, give me something that can't actually hurt anyone, and that's the way to go. 4, what's your favorite D&D monster? Ooh. One of the things I love about D&D is that there are dinosaurs in the game, but those are technically beasts, and I don't think I would really consider beasts monsters, even though they can be enemies. So Mind Flayer. I think the Mind Flayer is one of my favorites because they have a little bit of that Lovecraftian vibe to them, while their powers make them pretty nightmarish. They're not really a direct attack. They're not melee. They attack your brain, and that's probably the scariest thing, but also a really intriguing aspect a monster can have, I think. Question 5. What's your favorite NPC / villain that you've encountered / created? All right. There's so many good ones that I've encountered because I play with Trainer Jody regularly. Like, he's kind of my main DM. So tons of awesome villains, some funny, some like really deep and uber scary. I think because there's just so many with Jody, I need to go and do like focus on what I've created. I have DM'd before, and one of the things that I ended up doing was I took a character that I played in a couple campaigns actually, and she was a druid tiefling who had some major trauma involved with urban environments, and I had written into her character sheet that she did not like to spend time in cities. She didn't like to spend time in these like urban structures because of that trauma. And then the first DM that I had her in a campaign for ended up having us spend a ton of time in Waterdeep. So as a result, she moved from, I think she was either lawful or neutral good to chaotic evil. Like, she slowly mentally declined because of the constant re-traumatization that she was going through. As a result of that happening with that character, when I led my own campaign, I ended up putting her in as the main villain. We started very basic sandbox kind of style, like all meet at the bar. Why not? It's what we do. Taverns. And then them going like through the woods and doing these things. And I hadn't planned out a main villain for them because this was really kind of an exploratory campaign where they were trying to get their feet wet and understand what D&D was. And then after the first game, they're like, great, everyone can meet next week. And I was semi-tricked into DMing a regular campaign. So I ended up turning this PC I had played into the main villain of the story, because from that first get your feet wet session. It was about orcs coming and trying to destroy the town. What ended up happening was my druid, who had been so traumatized and had her alignment switch, had decided that all urban environments needed to be destroyed and brought back to nature. So she was actually the big bad of that campaign. And I love that because I was able to take this character who had started as just a PC for me, who I wanted to play, figure out, have some fun with, figure out how to cast some more fire, and then turn into a dinosaur eventually. Druids are fun. And because of what she went through in those campaigns that I played her, she became actually a really viable villain for this game. Yeah. I should play her more. I should bring her out again. I like her. 6. Has one of your characters ever died, and what killed them? No. Some of this has to do with how long the average campaign is, how long I've been able to play, and also having good DMs like Jody who do a good job of balancing early encounters. So none of my characters have ever died. Obviously, they've been knocked unconscious a multitude of times, sometimes by their own stupidity, often by their own stupidity. But none has ever actually died. Yeah. I think I'm pretty lucky in that. 7. What's your best Nat 20 story? It's probably not the best story, but it's what's coming to the top of my head. If you know Trainer Jody, you know that there is a group called the Mighty Extreme Heroes, or MEH, which I have a halfling bard, Cadence, who is part of that group. And when MEH plays, they do these kind of parody games. So we've been like the Rangers of Power, we've been the Revengers, all of these things that are based off of like what's happening in pop culture and news, or just like fun fandoms that we're part of. And so one of the things that I ended up playing, this was not a full MEH group, but it was Jody DMing, and I think I was playing with my friend Vaughn, and then Gil Ramirez, I believe, was also playing for that game, or that was Elias. It was Elias. Elias Thompson was in that game. And it was a Minecraft-inspired session. And you can find this on Jody's YouTube channel. So, first of all, I'm pretty sure I almost killed the entire group very early on with fire, which was fun. I think I cast Fireball in an enclosed space, and that did the most damage to anyone the entire session. But then we had to go and face the Ender Dragon, which had some other name to be legally distinct. And when I went through, my character was at a level where she had polymorph. So I polymorphed into a dragon. And then I had to roll for seduction because I decided to like seduce the dragon, not in like a fully sexual way, but in a like trick the dragon into thinking that, oh yeah, I'm a hot dragon thing. Ignore the people who are going to attack you. And I think I rolled a nat 20 on that. So Jody had to then play it like this Ender Dragon thing had then married my polymorph dragon, and that game ended up being ended because the big dragon said something about like my morning breath or something, and in my dragon form, I decided that was a huge insult and I ripped out its throat with my claws. I just like fun moments like that where you're playing a game and someone wants to do something that seems completely ridiculous outside the realm of how you might usually play the game. But the DM's like, you know what? Go for it, roll for it. And then you see that nat 20 and everyone has to figure out how to go from there and like how to keep working the story. It's the best yes and moment for improv people. 8. What's your best nat 1 story? I don't remember most of my nat 1s. I will say that. And there have been a few of them. I think at one time I got 3 nat 1s in a row. I don't remember the circumstances around that, but I'm pretty sure that happened. What I like with nat 1s is it still makes the story interesting. So just like you can get a nat 20 on a really odd moment and everyone's got to figure things out, you can get a nat 1 in a moment and then you have to figure out how the story continues forward, right? So it's not as interesting when nat 1s happen when you're fighting. Because, yeah, I don't believe in, like, hurting yourself to the point that you could kill yourself from rolling nat 1s, unless you're already unconscious and it's death save. So it's not that interesting when you get it when you're fighting. It's just a bad failure. It's more interesting when it happens in the actual role-playing moments. So I like those nat 1s because you could have something like trying to convince someone to let you into their house, right? That you're a guest, and you roll a nat 1, and suddenly they're convinced that you're like a burglar or something who's come to rob them, and they're calling the cops on you, and you have to figure out different ways to get around what you're doing. So that's a cop-out answer because it's not a best nat 1 story, but I don't have one really off the top of my head. Those are just the way, those are the type of nat 1s that I like though. Question 9. What's the highest level you've ever played a character to? So this is also difficult because with Jody's parody games with Meh, our level will depend kind of on the adventure he constructs. So it's not like we started at level 1 and we're going through. I think the highest we've played for him is either level 10 or 12. And that's the highest I've played in D&D as well. I do want to see what happens. Like, just get someone to level 18. Druid or Bard, because those have some really fun effects at that point. But yeah, just level 10 or 12. Decently long campaigns, but nothing to get you to that epic status. Question 10, 2/3 of the way there. What's your favorite magical item? I forget I have magical items most of the time. I've had a few different things, like rings, things that can be worn that hold spell slots. That's pretty typical. I will say the item that I most gravitate towards getting in D&D is a bone of some kind. I've done this in several D&D sessions. If you can't tell by my actual real world examples of real bones, I like bones. In undergrad, I actually focused my anthropology towards biological anthropology, and a lot of that has to do with osteology. So I have a pretty strong background in bones and like siding and placing and aging and all that jazz for them. So when I'm playing a game and they're like, these skeletons, blah, 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 I'm like, great. Is there a calcaneus anywhere? Which is the ankle bone. It's the tarsal. That's the largest. And I'm just like, find me a freaking femur. Find me a humerus. Find me a calcaneus. Give me something that reminds me of undergrad, and like, just, it makes me happy. So is it a magical item? No, but it's magical for me. I'm totally cheating this list. 11. If you had an IRL, in real life alignment, what would it be? I have fought with people about this. I know I am not lawful. That's just not me. I am very much more like a chaotic personality, but I think I'm chaotic good. A lot of the things I do are there to help other people, rather than myself. I have had people, though, who insist I'm chaotic evil. So we've thought about it and landed on chaotic neutral as like a medium ground, but I'm chaotic good. Not to the fault that Jody is, but like, for example, this is a story I haven't told in a very long time. In middle school, there was an organization to save music in my school district. And I donated all of my money, which at the time was somewhere over $300, to this organization. Because in my thinking, I was like 12, maybe 13, and I didn't need that cash on hand. Giving it to the music education for myself and for other people mainly, since I was going to be leaving that school district for the high school district soon, was more important. Like, they needed it more. But for the more chaotic side of things, I did not tell my parents I did that. They found out later when I ended up getting interviewed about it. They weren't super happy with me for doing that without talking to them first, but that is something I do. I saw that there was a need for something. I had the means to help with that need. And so I did it. And that's just kind of how I operate a lot of the time. Yeah. I do often work on it's better to ask forgiveness than permission model, but I also understand the personalities of the people who would be giving that permission or forgiveness, right? And that's an important aspect as well. I can be chaotic, but I need to understand the environment in which, how far I can hit that chaotic side. But yeah, chaotic good. 12. If I had to date one of my characters, which one would I pick? Do I have to? Like, going through my main characters, I end up playing a lot of the chaotic elements to the extreme in games. Some of my characters end up super hyper, like, as a result of that, and like the bouncy, happy kind of chaos. And then some of them are like super dark, and they all have messed up backgrounds because it's D&D. Finding a happy family is rare in a PC. So, like, they're all aspects of my personality, but They're all only one facet. And I don't want to date myself or really any part of me. So why would I want to date my characters? I keep thinking about Cadence, my bard, and how like chaotic hyper she is. And I would like go on a date with her and we could probably be friends. But I would break up with her quickly if we were dating. I can't deal with that much high energy on a day-to-day basis. It just won't work. And then thinking of like my darker characters who are more stoic, like that would be fun. That would probably last longer just because neither of us would really communicate and bring up any actual issues and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think we would break up with each other. I think that we would just stop seeing each other because we wouldn't communicate. So there's no good relationship with any of my characters. That's just the way it is. Okay, 13. Is there a character you want to play but haven't had a chance to play yet? Yes. I have a half-orc ranger in my character sheets that I've made, and she hasn't had a chance at all to get out there. And I don't play rangers very often. My first character was one. I haven't really played a ranger since. And I like the idea of a little outside the box. Like, a lot of people were confused when I made a tiefling and a druid, right? And so having a half-orc be a ranger instead of something more melee also confuses, like, the min-maxers. But I think it makes an interesting story, thinking about how this person raised in more stereotypical environments would somehow end up in this different path, right? And that's one of the biggest things. Like, I'm definitely a murder hobo. Love being able to get out, like, my emotions and potential aggressions and things by going and killing all the enemies. But when I create characters, it's not to be the best murder hobo. It's to have an interesting story to them. A lot of time that story ends up being secretive, and I manage to go 3 years without revealing anything of value to the rest of the party about their backstory. But it's important to me when I create the characters. 14. Are you a dice goblin or a dice minimalist? Gonna put myself on blast a little here. I have never bought any dice for myself. That does not mean I don't have dice, but I get them as gifts from friends and things. Like, I have a collection of D20s from my friend Vaughn, who I mentioned earlier, and I received this really cool, like, Cthulhu dice set from someone as well. So I like dice, and I have a collector's spirit, but I'm not willing to buy them for myself. I don't get that particular personally. I've never seen how balanced my dice are, which I probably should. But yeah, so I could easily become a dice goblin if my opinion about that changed. I think that where I stand right now, I am more of a dice minimalist. But I like dice. I just like getting it as gifts. I think that's just better for me. Last question. 15. What rule or mechanic have you never quite wrapped your brain around? That's an interesting question. So I think if we go back to like the earlier stuff, like clerics and stuff, I don't understand them. I get other people playing them, but they don't make sense to me on a fundamental level. There's some things that I haven't quite wrapped my brain around because I've never played those characters. Like, I've only recently had a warlock character out, and that is a learning curve, right? That's not a typical spellcaster. It's definitely not a wizard. It's not how a bard casts spells or a druid. It's a different format and a different way of like balancing where things fit. And so like, I don't think it's a matter of never being able to. I think it's a matter of not having the experience yet to do so. And maybe that's an important thing. Push yourself outside your comfort box. I don't think I'm ever going to play a cleric, but maybe I'll have more conversations with people who do like to play clerics to figure out why. And like, no shade on clerics. If that's you, and that's completely fine. It's just not me. So yeah, be able to have those conversations and get that different perspective, I think, would be important for that. Trying to think of something else, and I think that's really the biggest thing, is just there are classes I'm not familiar with yet, and doesn't mean that I won't ever be able to wrap my head around them. Just means I haven't yet. Okay, so that's 15. I think I'm supposed to now pass this on. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all, it is completely voluntary to do this. It is your choice. Figure out if you've got the time and the energy to spare for it. You know, we're in a pandemic. No bad juju if you choose not to do one of these things. I won't be mad at you. But I think that I want to tag Omar Najam, Carrie Callahan, and Shax, who I never have to say the last name of, so I'm not going to mispronounce your name in this video. So I'll tag you 3, and you guys can choose if you want to do this. It's a pretty fun tag. I'll put the link for the questions from Ginny D and like Jody's video in the description box below for this. And I do hope you do it, though, because I'm interested in what your answers will be. All right, anyone else who wants to do this tag, feel free. Let me know if you do it, preferably sooner rather than later. Spring semester is about to start, and I'm going to be busy AF. But it'll be a good time, no matter what happens. All right, I hope you're all doing well. You're happy, healthy, living the dream wherever you may be, and if you're not, that you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, okay. I don't have a good send-off for my YouTube videos. On Twitch I sing. What would be a good send-off? I think that's what we're going to say. Comment below what I should use to send off my videos. All right, adios everyone.